This time we'll open the meeting for the Finance Committee for the date of February 21st, 2019. Could we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. We are recorded tonight by Area 58. Thank you. Tonight's presentation is from Operations and Maintenance on their budget. Gentlemen.
Good evening.
How are you?
Very well, thank you for having us.
Good. I assume you have a copy of the same thing? I have extras if you didn't bring the same. I assume you have the same sheet, but let me just give you one so that we'll be on the same page. It's probably a little different than what y'all looking at.
Just give me 1 minute to find ours. I believe I just have the condensed version of this. Okay, there it is. Okay. Would you like to go over line by line or just the increases?
Just I think the increases would be a good place to start. I know when you brought us up to speed a couple months ago, you talked about a part-time secretary and a new truck driver laborer.
Correct.
So,
So yes, we can start there. So touching on that, we are looking to add one additional full-time employee, which would be under the union, under the title of truck driver laborer. So this is our lowest entry-level position into the union. They would work out of the DPW, and they would be kind of a universal person that could do a variety of things. They could assist on the grounds, they can do the general labor of the DPW, and then, once they're in, if they so choose, they can work their way up with licenses and different things of that nature. But this is kind of a, if you will, an entry-level position. So we're looking to add to our additional staff, or add additional staff to this position. We just feel that it's definitely needed. We could use a few, for sure, but one is a good start. It would definitely assist with the department. And overall, it's going to help where we're adding a lot of new work for the department as far as fields, upkeep, mowing. The new elementary school will be online this year. That will be an additional mowing, maintaining recreational fields. It really wasn't there before. What was there was it was not irrigated. It didn't have to get mowed much. Now we're going to have fields that are fully irrigated, will require weekly mowing. So that's going to be a large burden. So they can float between that. They can assist on the roads, the cemeteries. So we feel the position is definitely needed there. And the other position is the clerical position, which would be a part-time 19-hour-a-week position. And this would be to assist John and myself with office work as far as things we have to housekeeping do now, payroll, purchase orders, filing, just things of that nature. I think it's something we could both, utilize. Whoever needed the person more, we could divide it up between us, and I think it would be a huge asset to the department. Just stuff that takes time out of our daily schedule where we could be doing other things, that this task could be handled by a clerical administrative assistant.
that's that $17,000 number?
Correct.
And is that part-time?
Yes. Yeah, 19 hours a week, yes.
And I assume that the new laborer's position is in the regular salary category?
Correct. That is a truck driver laborer, would be a step one into the union. Do I have the breakdown on that one specifically? I have the combined total of the two, which I believe is 78 $96.68.
Yep, I have that number here.
Okay,
And then the 17,075 for the clerical.
okay. All right, any questions about that?
No, we knew that was coming.
Yep,
And that was the whole idea of the good thing about having the informal, how's it going, a couple of months ago. So it gave us an idea to see what are your plans? And that makes it a whole lot easier, because we know exactly what to expect, so it kind of makes this a little bit quicker and easier for you to come before and go over.
And you may have already talked about, I just missed it, but I'm looking at the regular salaries line item going from 2019, 622 to 789, so it's an increase of 167. How many positions is that?
I'm sorry, John, let me catch
I'm
up.
just looking at the regular salaries line item, second line down from department head.
Okay.
I'm looking at the change between 19 original, I guess, budget and the 2020 budget going up 167.
Assuming that was union.
Because of licenses
That
and
would-
step
No,
raises?
that's contractual obligations.
Okay.
So the amount that you're seeing, that change, it includes all of the employees now with their
Step
union
increases.
contract increases,
Okay.
plus the new employees.
So for new employees, it was one, did you say, or two? How many new employees?
One full-time,
One
part-time.
FTE and one part-time.
What was the impact of a new employee? What's that number? I don't need it exact, but roughly off that 167 increase, how much of that is that new position?
I believe that's probably around 50,
Okay.
yeah.
And the new contract just got signed? Like, it starts for 2020 fiscal year?
That started in 17 or 18.
So it ends in
The
2020?
contract ends in 2021.
Okay.
How many FTEs do you have now?
9 on the DPW side.
Yeah.
I think there's total between operations and maintenance and DPW, it's all one department now, but school side and DPW, the union has, I think, 14, or 13 total, I believe, something like that.
And we're actually, currently, we're interviewing next week to fill a mechanic's position. We had the assistant mechanic leave for another job, so right now we're operating with just a head mechanic, so we are looking to fill that. So that'll actually come at a little bit of a savings, because that person will come in at a lower level than the,
But that's full-time?
correct, yes.
Thought I saw that advertised.
And do we have any, anything in here for, did we used to use like, labor from like the prison labor or anything like that? Do we have that in here as well?
We don't get that anymore.
We don't get that anymore?
No.
Okay. Is it because we don't?
Unfortunately, we
Because we
don't.
don't want it, or because they just?
No,
don't-
they are
just
not
don't-
offering it, for whatever reason on their end. If, we would like it to come back someday, and we keep inquiring, because it was a huge help to us,
Thought it was,
to the department and to the town, absolutely.
What was that, John? I'm sorry?
yeah. Sometimes prison labor would come in and do work for the town. I think we just provided like lunch, no, food or something like that.
Yeah, that was the fee, you'd buy them lunch once in a while.
Any new equipment this year? I don't see anything here. Was there something in capital outlay for you guys? No?
In capital, yes. Yep. In capital, we're actually still working through some minor details. I did some changes. We're looking to purchase a truck this year, but it's gonna kind of be one truck that'll do the job of two trucks. So we lost, through inspection, a catch basin truck this past September, and we also lost a sander. So that was two trucks. We're looking to purchase one truck with a hook system where we can change bodies on it, because we don't need a full-time catch basin
Yep.
truck dedicated. If we had a spare truck, it worked out fine, but we kind of lost those. It was a spare sander, spare catch basin truck. Neither one of them are utilized enough to say we want to purchase two new ones, in our opinion, and speaking with the head mechanic. So we're looking to purchase one new truck where we can swap bodies. Summertime, it could be a catch basin cleaner. Wintertime, it will get the sander with a plow. So we're working on that. So one, we had The one truck was this year and another truck the next year. So we're looking to combine them. So I'm still working on the numbers with the town administrator to see where that's gonna end up. So that was our large capital.
I thought there was some talk about that. I don't have any other questions, Beth?
Just one, uniforms and allowances is going up $9,600. Is that for the new employees?
No, that's contractual.
Contractual too.
And that is also,
I'll speak to that.
yes,
Okay.
No, go ahead, Elaine.
So in the past, I actually did the budget for this line, and I thought their telephone allowances came out of our telephone line item, so I budgeted it wrong for the last 2 or 3 years. This year I budgeted it correctly, so their telephone allowances, which is about $5,500 for the year, is now added into this line, as well as their hoisting and CDL, all that stuff.
It's
that
all
they
on
need.
there, okay.
And also, the expiration dates on their licenses fall in different years, so this is probably just a heavy renewal year for those licenses.
We pay for that,
We
Yes.
reimburse.
the renewals? And what about the DOT cards, the physical cards?
Yep.
And I assume we also pay for their hydraulic hoisting licenses?
correct.
I take my test for that a week from Thursday, tonight, a week from today. I'm taking that, me and my son are ponying up.
Forgetting about the numbers first. Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm good. That was the only one that really.
This whole
was
idea
good.
about the consolidating into one, department. There'll be some cost increases probably, to provide additional services. But can you think of any areas where you're actually seeing savings?
Yeah, I definitely think, I feel both these schools and the town have benefited, where it's just, and both departments always work together independently, but there are some means where we've combined some contracts. There's been some cost savings there, utilizing vendors. Now, they're kind of bidding on more of a bulk items. So there's been some savings there contractually. And it's just easier where, like I say, the schools and the DPW always, if one or the other needed something, the question was asked and it was always, help was provided, but it's just a little bit easier now where, everything's under one umbrella.
Sharing equipment and
Yep.
resources.
Yeah, so we've definitely saved there. We've purchased some equipment, but we've also, out of these schools, I was able to purge quite a bit of equipment that was no longer necessary, that, I have the resources available under the DPW. So it was equipment we've actually, I'd say for what I bought, probably got rid of 3 times the amount of equipment, smaller John Deere's, smaller Kubotas, things of that nature.
Was that equipment you sold or traded in against new equipment?
Yeah, we actually auctioned.
And I would, just on that, I just want to mention, so most of our contracts are from the state bid list, so it is the rock bottom price that we can get. So the cost savings are going to be the stuff like you mentioned, like Dave mentioned, that you won't see, which is the sharing of our resources. But also, when we became townwide for buildings and grounds, the DPW had accounts such as contract hire, other purchase services, operating supplies. And people like to use the term slush fund because you don't know what's coming out of where. And we wanted to put an end to that. And we also wanted it to be more reflective of where our expenses are going, so we could see exactly what's being spent on the grounds and exactly what's being spent on vehicles. So they came up with accounts that are now named equipment repair and maintenance, building repair and maintenance, and grounds repair and maintenance, as well as stock inventory, which is for the shop as opposed to just operating supplies, and then they split out office supplies in a separate line item. So not only does it help track where the expenses go, but it helps make the accounting of it just a lot more transparent.
And we also, on the school side, I maintain those accounts separately, just because those report to the DORE.
I did have one other question that just came to mind. Where's the snow removal come from? That's coming out of your budget, or is that a separate line item?
Nope, that is in here under,
Snow operations right in the back.
okay,
Did I miss it because I
Yep.
can't read?
Storm.
let me see if I can
This is
find it on that
stormwater.
sheet.
Snow removal.
I'm just trying to find it on the sheet you have.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Let's see.
Snow operations, 423 is the
Contracts, overtime salaries.
I don't see it on here, do you?
full-time salaries, repair and maintenance of the equipment.
It's level.
390. I don't have line items, yeah.
No, I don't see it on there.
So we expended in 2008, this is the whole division, 318,000. Our budget for 2019 was 259, and you were saying the same thing for 259?
Yes.
Okay, you have it there.
How
Sorry,
come
yeah,
I
we don't
that
have
in
it.
here.
This is the only one I have.
It's on the second page,
Yeah, it just wasn't on the one they have.
I know not, Meg's not here, but we haven't, how much we spent of the budget, anybody? It's like, not a lot, I guess, not
Yeah,
looking for the
we
exact
spent a
number.
decent amount.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, because we've been
You say-
out
would you
salting
say
and
half?
sanding quite a bit. Maybe even a little more than half. I have the figures downstairs if you want me to run down and get them.
No, it's just,
Now,
it could be a little and it'll blow up in the next, couple months
That's
based
it,
on
yeah, you
whatever,
never know.
whatever we
Right,
get.
Yeah,
Yep.
or it could be quiet with any luck.
Is this shared with the school, or what is, is this budget footing the bill for the school grounds also, or is
Yes.
that portion coming out of the school budget?
Nope, the only thing that comes out of the school budget related to snow removal is the custodians that shovel, and do sidewalk come out of the school overtime line item. But the plowing, the sanding, the salting come out of this operating budget,
And we don't charge the school budget for that?
correct? And it was that way before as well. Before the merger. It's been that way since I've been here, 12 years.
Yes, sir.
The summer help, are those students, is that some other,
That could be your job.
Could be.
winter help, I mean?
We try to get students, we get all walks of life that come in, just anybody looking for a job, but we try to focus it towards the younger kids, but
Yeah.
We actually have a couple that are retired.
we try, yeah.
Yeah, we have some retirees that apply and have worked out well.
Very well.
I know when I was growing up, they had, a lot of us got jobs working for the town, tennis courts and things like that.
Yeah, they've all the summer help has been a huge help.
But that was only 20 cents an hour back then, wasn't it?
Covered wagon days.
That's what I thought.
The, where was it? Stormwater management, what
I'll let John speak to that.
does that entail? I'm just curious as to what that.
That's just stormwater management, all the stormwater that's running off, making sure that catch basins are clean, really just good housekeeping for the town. Just making sure that, people aren't pumping out their septics into the drains and stuff like that. We have a engineering firm, Ty and Bond, is doing most of the work for us on that. They've done all our mapping of our catch basins and all that stuff for us.
And they do an annual survey.
They do,
correct?
yep, they do. And it's just keeping up with the EPA regulations and what the,
What happens with the stuff you take out of the storm drains? I'm just curious, just pile it up, compost
we
it?
pile it, well, they're not allowed to compost it, we pile it up and then it has to be brought to a facility.
What's that?
We stockpile it at our old salt shed, but then it has to be brought to a facility,
Oh, okay.
out of town, so.
That also,
Is it burned or
What's that?
burned? Well,
I don't really know what they do with it. I don't know. I don't know if they could burn it, because it's really just mud and.
Typically it's a lot of
and
road
sand.
debris, sand.
Mostly
and
sand from sanding,
Silt.
a lot of that stuff, so.
that also, part of that budget, I'm assuming, takes care of the easements that are for some of those drainages. In my house on Eastman Street, there was an easement for a drainage area from the drain in Eastman that went out into a drainage area.
Yeah, that doesn't
You guys
really
came
come
down
out of
and cleaned
stormwater.
it
That's just
up.
something we just go and do. Stormwater budget is just for basically taking care of the engineering firm that's helping us out with it.
Did we not use them in 2018? Or is it just bucketed to somewhere else?
No, we use them into a sheet.
It was,
It's a lane, I don't know if you want to look at it.
a warrant article, I believe. It it wasn't
You're
in the
right,
budget.
yeah,
It
that's
wasn't.
exactly what, it was a warrant
And
article, you're
so
right.
we're putting
Yep.
it in the budget, almost like, I consider it more like an insurance policy for
Okay.
stormwater management. So we got the main work done, now it's just upkeeping it, like you said, with the DEP regulations.
Yeah,
Try to stay a step ahead before you get behind and have a problem.
exactly, yep. It's just a lot of training and learning, and like I said, it's a lot of it's just good housekeeping. I couldn't find it.
And is there anything in here for, it might have been a warrant article in prior years, but some of these roads that go back, they're grandfathered in, they don't really fit maybe current code, but you have to maintain them. They're not accepted by the town. Usually, I think it's 15 grand a year or something.
We had private ways, I don't know if that's still on here or not. We used to have a private way fund, I don't see that on here. We don't do really any work in any of the private, any roads that aren't accepted, we don't really, you know, if it's not accepted and there's a snowstorm and there's a fire there, of course, we're gonna go and clear that road out to make sure the trucks and emergency vehicles can get in there. But if a road's not accepted, we don't really have too much to do with it.
I just remember at town meeting, there used to be something, there used to be some, you know, a warrant article that they used to ask for. Again, the $15,000 number rings a bell.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't remember it being that much personally, but I do remember a private ways, yeah. I don't remember the amount though.
Although it's not the town's responsibility to clear those out, they have to for public
Safety reasons, yeah.
Yeah. And depending on the circumstance, if there's a large pothole or something like that, it's my, you know, we'll go and help out here and there, but we don't, you know, spend a ton of time in those roads or any money on them.
Yeah.
Try
And
not
you
to.
feel you're well equipped, taking on the fields next year?
I think so.
I think with the additional person, we're working on how it's all gonna play out now, but, yeah, I think we'll be okay.
Maybe summer help will fill in with some of that, too.
Yeah, there's no, between the cemeteries and all the rec areas now, and just what we have for ornamental grass around town, it's pretty much a full-time job from May to September.
Yeah, and the new truck driver labor position will be over at the school, assisting the groundskeeper there. Will be probably a good majority of his job, will be spent over there in the summer, helping.
Are we stumping all of this next door where they're pulling them trees,
No plan to right now, no.
or out front?
No
We're not-
plan to, no.
We'll have to think about that and do something. We'd like to do some hardwood plantings as well.
Maybe grinding, we'll see. Stumping those pines will just make a really big mess.
Actually, that would be a great idea, just grind the stumps down below grade.
And just for the record, all the trees that you see coming down right now has been free to the town. That's all, Eversource has taken those down.
Really?
Yeah, they're taking, we had 31, I believe, we wanted to take down, and I believe they're taking 21 of the 31. So then the contractor will take the contractor that we're gonna hire will take the additional ones down for obviously a lot cheaper than what we
Great.
thought it was gonna be.
Yeah.
Great. Bill?
Just curious on the policy for plowing. I mean, I think I've seen plows come down, nothing on the streets, and I'm just curious as to when they go out and do it, you know, I mean, it's just, there were two of them went by my house, and very little needs to be done, and I'm just curious as to, you know,
So-
I've seen them on the state highways, we've all seen them, just.
Yeah, so we like to wait till there's at least 3 or 4 inches on the ground before we plow. We try to wait as long as we can, just every hour we wait saves that much more money. But then you gotta think of the safety part of it. And we also watch the weather. The road may not look like it needs to be plowed with just a little bit of slush, but if the temperature drops and that stuff freezes, my phone starts ringing, and it's a safety issue and everything else, so we try to get them down to blacktop as best we can, as often as we can, you know, so that's why it may not look like there's anything on the road.
Yeah,
There might just be stuff in the center line or on the fog line, and we just, you know,
yeah.
clearing them, so.
And every storm is different. It's,
Yeah, I mean, I've seen them, you know, here in town and on the highways, and it's just blade on the pavement. And
Yeah.
just
Yeah, it
seems
depends.
like
It depends what's gonna have to happen in the storm. It depends how cold it's gonna get, whether we scrape the slush off, or if we say, oh, it's gonna melt, it shouldn't be an issue, and we'll leave it.
I mean, we,
Is that something that there's an independent contractors do, or Is that, you just call them up and tell them while they on this?
John makes the call for them when, we'll have our own crew out, depending on the type of storm, possibly pre-treating, with material. And then, like he said, around 3-4 inches, we'll have our own people out. And then if it's a large enough storm, it looks like it's gonna go. We've actually had storms where we haven't. I think the first storm this year, we didn't call in any contractors.
Yeah, there's been
We
a
just,
couple.
we just did it with about 10 town trucks, the entire town. If the snow looks, if the storm doesn't look like it's gonna go on, and it's ending and we can get it done, we'd do it. I think we've done that once or twice this year.
We did
But
today.
then, but then other storms, like Monday's storm, we called in contractors, because there was no way we were gonna be able to do that and keep up with it. This morning, they scraped, and we didn't get 3 inches, but it was a safety factor, because things were freezing. I know I had an out-of-town meeting this morning, and I went through Middleborough, and Middleborough did not put a plow down or any material down, and their roads were not as well as ours.
They did not want me to mention this, but we did get an email this morning from a resident who works 4 towns away. He said he drove through all 4 towns, and Carver by far had the best roads.
Every storm, Monday, we plowed for a while, and then we put material down and kind of let the traffic, we'll work the material in, to help break it up, and we'll go back and scrape them again. And every storm, you kind of have to play with the hand you dealt, but we do the best we can with the resources we have.
What's that? Yep. John? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to advance this budget to the selectmen for approval.
I'll make that motion to approve. I don't have a total here, so I'm assuming it's DPW salaries and DPW operating. Budget of, under the administrator recommended column, $1,248,829 to approve and pass on to the selectmen for a vote.
Needs a second?
I second the motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you very much for your support.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Much
guys.
appreciated.
You did a good job the last 2 storms, but I'm spoiled because I get Chucky Card out in front of my house, and he does a really good job. You're not here for veterans, right?
I'm here just observing. I've never been to a finance committee.
Well, you're in for a real treat.
Fascinating.
This is just hot stuff.
So I
Say we're here for therapy, is that?
Yeah. Apparently, we have no one here tonight from veterans, so.
Apparently not, but it is level funded. There's no change.
What's that? Oh, yeah, he's coming.
I'm surprised that veterans didn't come, but
Thank you.
I can't deal with it.
Yeah.
It's not a huge budget anyway.
Good night.
Well, actually, it's good size.
Watch out for those invasive species, John.
I have them come back for the next meeting?
They're gonna have to, yeah. Gonna have to invite them to come back for our next meeting, which is not gonna be, if we have the joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen on the 5th,
That's the only name I caught.
then we're not gonna have a meeting between now and then,
I
so.
heard his name.
Speak to it then.
Yeah, we can speak to it real quick, then they can come before the joint meeting, because it's gonna be pretty quick anyhow, so,
There is no change on anything.
yeah. So why don't we just reach out to the,
Get onto the town website.
to that group and have them come on the 5th
Okay.
as part of the selectmen. I don't know if you were here, I've tentatively penned us in for the 5th of March for the joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen. That was what they requested the other night.
Sure.
And I said that would be up to this group tonight. So if you're good with it, and everybody else is good with it, we will have it.
March 5th is a Tuesday?
Yeah, it's 7 o'clock. That
Should
work
be
for
fine.
you?
Yep.
Okay. We are on for the 5th Elaine. Thank you. Next thing is the stipends. This was brought to my attention from the town administrator, and it was the result of a couple of committee chairmen that, I guess the comment was 27 cents an hour was how the number came about. And I think it had something to do with it's not worth the money or something. And it's really supposed to be a voluntary kind of a thing anyway. However, that being said, looking over all of these things, I think, and I would like to see us take up 2 items tonight out of this entire stipend list. One would be to consider raising the selectmen, specifically the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, to $3,000 from $2,000, and I'll give my reasons in a moment, and raising the members from $1,700 to $2,000. Now, the reason for the big increase for the chairman is the chairman of the Board of Selectmen is in this building virtually 5 days a week for something. Whether it's a 5-minute stop-in, or it's a half an hour, put the fire out, or it's a 2-hour whatever. It's become a real involved labor of love, if you will. Not quite so much for the membership. So that was that request. I do understand that some towns, i.e. Middleborough, doesn't offer any stipends at all. They're in the minority by vast minority. Other towns offer ridiculous amounts of money. I don't think this is outrageous. And the second one, without this sounding greedy, because that was my biggest concern, was to bring up the Conservation Commission, of which I am a member. And if we vote on this tonight, I will not take part in that vote. I will abstain. The reason the Conservation Committee came up is because, like the Planning Board, the Conservation Committee meets twice a month. They do as many, if not more, site visits for every one of these projects, sometimes multiple site visits for the same project. They are as involved in conservation as the committee members are on the Planning Board. And I think it's fair that the Conservation Commission be brought to the same standard that the Planning Board enjoys. So that's where that comes from. So that recommendation coming from me would be that we raise Conservation Commission chair to $1,000 and to the members to $800. And those are the only 2 items that I'd like to see taken up this year. There's, as you can see, there's a lot of other ones on there, ours being one. But you know, aside from budget season, it's not real crunch time. We're not jumping in our car and running all over Carver looking at different sites and you know, running around the same way that the other committees do. So that was the real thing, to bring those 2 in line and see if that would go and see how that would work out. And I'd love to hear everybody's input.
How do the people on these committees feel about what they're getting, what they should get?
I've actually brought that up. In fact, I mentioned it last night to the chairman of the Conservation Commission, and we mentioned it before. They all feel very similar. Jim did tell me that once upon a time, the big disparity between the 2 committees and the numbers was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, was there was an election, and this was designed to help defray the cost of that election. I don't know how much water that really holds, because what's really involved in running for the Planning Board? It's not like it's, you know, it's not a national campaign and we don't have TV spots. So I don't know that that should be the basis. I do know that just in the limited site visits that I've done, I'd venture to guess that if you added them all up, I've probably gone through 4 or 5 tanks of gas, which is nothing compared to what the other members do, because they're doing site visits, literally, a group of them every 2 weeks. I try to get over and take a look at what they're looking at on a Saturday, because I work all week, unless I happen to be off. So they do a lot more. So I'm kind of talking on their behalf, but because I don't want there to be the appearance of a conflict, I would abstain from that vote for conservation. Does that answer your?
Well, I was just wondering how the members themselves.
What do you think, Jim?
Do you
I
feel
I
you?
think the members would feel,
Valued?
yes, I think they feel valued, I think they feel justified, and maybe surprised. However, they're like draftee soldiers, okay, 17 cents an hour, but there's a job, they're asked to do it, they do it. And we go out to the sites, weather's not so wonderful, you go out unless it's impossible or dangerous. But the whole idea is to get the understanding of what's being proposed and what it means, what we see now. So we have people come in that say, well, we just want to clear a few trees. You go and you see, oh yeah, you want to cut 40 trees along the edge of the pond? No. So
That's right.
there's a lot of issues that come into play, and a lot of times the sessions go into education of the public. We have a couple came in last night who had applied to get an okay for having an upland bog on their property continued as upland, but they weren't using it as an upland bog, they were using it as a storage yard. And they're right next to a river, to the Crane Brook, so a lot of action had taken place within the 200-foot setback, which is supposed to be no touch, and that's the public education is a big aspect of it. So.
And continuing on that, we all went to that site once, and then Jim went back a second time, if not a third time, and took a whole bunch of pictures. So there's been multiple visits to that particular site. So, you know.
Expenses incurred by the members.
Yeah, it's not so much the expenses as it is the value of, you know,
The time, the experience.
yeah.
And so on, yeah.
So that's kind of what brought this to a light. I think the selectman's job has gotten much more difficult over the years with the changes and things. I think the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, I had no idea it was as involved as it is. So when that was brought to our attention, rather than try to revamp the entire stipend list, which I think would be ridiculous to try to do, I picked two items that I thought were grossly undervalued. And just thought I'd bring them before this board and see what your thoughts and ideas were on that.
So in total, are we looking to go up like $2,650? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think,
I'm looking at, unless somebody's a number somewhere, maybe I did it wrong. I'm looking at $800 between the two of them.
Or you came out 50?
2,200 for selectmen and 3,600 for conservation. Unless I did my math wrong. I guess there's one question. If you're gonna give out if you're gonna give out roughly
Yes.
this amount of money, where's the money come from?
That's what I'm wondering. So how much did you cut? Because maybe I didn't know how many members were
How many
in
members
each
were
one.
well, you've got 5 members on the Board of Selectmen, so you've got 1 chairman,
Yeah.
and you've got 4 members,
That's 11,000.
So there's 4.
right? And then you've got, as of present, you have 4 members on the Conservation Commission. But there is a vacancy. So you'd have to look at it
One
from a
being the chair.
5. 1 being the chair, and up to 4 members.
4 is
Okay.
32, 42,000, 4,200.
Well, I believe we can vote until we know what the exact number is.
Calculating, doing all this math.
I thought I had worked all that out, and I don't know what to do with that piece of paper now. I know I had. Because I had asked Meg for a breakdown. This is the best it gets, is on page 2 of that particular expense account. In other words, it doesn't break it down by individual committee. It brings out to elected officials, which I'm also assuming is just that. Committee salaries, I don't know, there's a whole lot of numbers on this page. It looks like town-wide, budget year-to-date of $20,650, expended year-to-date of $18,250. And we've committed 88% of the budget, so I'm assuming that if we took that number and increased it, the increase to the chairman of the Board of Selectmen is $1,000, the increase to the members is $300, so 3 4s are 12, so that's $2,200 more for the Board of Selectmen. And the big increase comes on conservation, which the chairman currently is paid $300 and the member is paid $150. So it'd be a $700 increase for the chairman, and it would be a $650 increase per member.
I was looking at 5,800, but
5,300.
Yeah, how much did you come up with?
Would you come up
I
with
had 5,800, but I might be a member off.
on what?
Would you get for the
Conservation.
selectmen, the total?
Selectmen's 2,200.
2,200
Okay.
for selectmen.
22.
Right now, I think you might have heard me say we only have 4 members on the Conservation Commission, but there is a vacancy, so you'd have to allow for that, which would be an additional 800 for that vacancy,
For the fifth one. 'cause
for
you
the
have-
5th one. But that, obviously, that vacancy is not in this budget.
The selectman is, the chair is going up to 1,000. to
Yeah.
3, and each member is increased to?
By 300.
But right now, nobody in the Board of Selectmen have asked for an increase.
Nobody what?
They haven't asked for an increase.
Nobody on any of these boards has asked for an increase.
Well, I always felt that conservation and planning board kind of go hand in hand. Not exactly sure why there was this disparity. But I'd just like to hear from the Board of Selectmen what their feeling is on increasing their stipend before.
I've spoken with individual members of the board.
Okay. It'd just be good to hear one-on-one what their thoughts are.
Well, we can find that out at the joint meeting easy
Sure.
enough, I'm sure.
Do that.
So,
But if we know what the exact number is, I wouldn't have a problem making a motion
353 and 58.
to increase the conservation stipend for the chair and the members, only because we kind of get an idea, they do a lot of work. I mean, you don't have to ask for a report. Things don't get done without these two boards working hand in hand.
how about if we make the motion to increase that to the level of the planning board and just leave it at that, because the maximum it's going to be is 5 members on conservation.
I'm fine
That's
with
the
that.
most now, right? Because that bylaw was changed at town meeting from 7 down to 5.
But you know where the money's coming from, because you gotta,
Yeah, we looking to
Gotta-
be budget
if
neutral?
you're gonna
or-
put somebody up, you gotta take somebody else down.
Yeah.
We'll have to ask Michael.
Do you want to hold off on that vote until Michael has a chance to look at it and he can give us a plan?
We can do that.
Yeah.
You want to table this
I guess
until
I'll
the...
table that motion.
Why don't we table the whole thing until the selectmen's joint
Sure.
meeting? We can hash this over pretty quick.
Yeah, be a quick one.
Motion to table, a second on that?
Second.
Motion table made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Carried. We're going to table this till the 5th. Okay. Next thing is the town assessment for Old Colony. This is pretty quick and easy because there's not much we can do about it. This is more of a, you're welcome, is about all we can say to it. I went to the budget meeting. It was a typical school budget meeting. This is what it is, this is what it is, and this is what it is. And that was about it. So, the biggest thing this year is Carver is real, I think it's pretty much the same as last year. 1,219,241 with 91 kids. There has been a increase and I went to last year's, I think it was like 12.9 last year per kid, and this year is 13,398, so I think it's very close to what it was last year. This is their final numbers. They brought in the insurance costs so that the health insurance costs were leveled out and
What page are you on? I'm trying to find the numbers. Where is it?
in the front, Carver,
Okay, this-
13,398.
So this is all
Yep,
school, that's all the school.
that's all school. And then the second page was operating and maintenance,
Gotcha.
which showed their debt service and so forth. It showed their overall budget. And here's the change from 19 to 18, from 19 to 20. Carver went from 93 to 91 kids. We went down 2.
So we go down 2, but costs go up.
Yep. Welcome to America. We actually went down 0.1% according to this, I think, if I'm reading that right. Yeah, 25,254 is the change. I gave Michael a copy of this, so he saw that number, and I have the next meeting with Old Colony. I actually think it's on the 5th. It's on the same day, it's on the 5th at 5 o'clock, if anybody from this committee wants to attend it. I'm gonna go there, but all it is a, Finance Committee took a vote and all set to go. I went to the meeting last year, and then we never had a Finance Committee meeting, so we never went back to the meeting to say that Carver voted okay, and it got passed anyway, so the whole thing is a case of, I don't know that there's much we can do about the whole thing anyway.
Has there ever been a discussion of doing the VOC stuff here in Carver for the Carver students and cost? And, $1 million in dollars spent over there, can it be done here?
That's insane. How would you do that? How many shops? You'd have to get a breakdown of where all these kids go. The key thing that was brought up, and this is something that we're going to need to get ready for as far as the assessments go, and it gets brought up every year, but it was brought up and it was addressed at this meeting, is they would like to expand programs. They'd like to bring in plumbing, HVAC. That's going to mean an addition to the building. Not a new school, but they haven't touched that school since they built it. So somewhere along the line, there's going to be a proposal for whether it's going to be $5, $10, $15, $20 million expansion, because the school is at capacity, within to capacity. As more and more kids are finding out that, $85,000 a year as a plumber is not a bad gig when you don't have a $100,000 in college debt coming out. So it's not that college isn't worth the money, but it's certainly not for everybody. So the vocational schools are, they're all across the country. They're roaring. I think that Carver would have to invest. Good God, it'd be tens of millions of dollars to put forth a vocational program and do it in-house, and then we'd only be doing it for 90 kids. Don't forget, in this is culinary, health, carpentry, welding, sheet metal, machine shop, automotive.
Yeah, I was just.
It's a expansive program.
I don't know, I don't know what the 91 kids are doing, and, carpentry, electrical, and, is it?
Well, yeah, electrical, I forgot about that.
Start
Electrical,
somewhere,
yeah.
and then see how it works.
They actually have a solar field that's been installed next to the school that the electrical department is learning how to maintain and work with. So these kids are on the cutting edge of what's going on. I know that Rose, my stepdaughter, graduated and she took machine shop, and they had CAD, they had just bought a CAD setup, and so they're in that cutting edge.
Well, I know it's absolutely necessary because not everybody's cut out for, working on computers, and you still need someone to maintain your house, and, I
Yeah,
mean, I went the other way, from college, graduate school to doing carpentry, so I was gonna, but it wasn't available at the time, shopping around school, but, I don't know, just thinking, kids don't have to travel over there, buses, something here, and starting.
That was another-
Steel building, something, inexpensive, just,
I don't think you could, I don't know how you could offer, you'd have to start out with a very small curriculum. I don't know if they've even explored that,
yeah, I would just ask.
And if Carver were to try to withdraw from this, I'm not sure that we can to begin with, what would that do to Old Colony?
Right, no, I know you said something about.
As a regional
penalty
school.
or something if we were to.
I don't think we can. I think we're tied into some kind of a,
Some sort of a penalty.
yeah, I think there's some kind of a, you can't get out of it, but I could be wrong.
So if I
But,
read this summary, it's just, obviously, the cost is, for 2020 is 12.1 million. Then there's an offset of 1.5 for, I guess, recovery from out-of-district
mhm,
kids. And then I guess the less funds applied must be Chapter 70 money?
mhm.
Yeah. So the net assessment to all 5 towns is 6.9 million,
Yep.
which feeds to the first page, which I see there on the top.
Yeah, see, here's your chapter 70 is the 3277, is that right? Funds applied? Right below that number you're reading,
375.
transportation fund offset, transportation reimbursement aid.
So our allocation is 1.2 million
Yep.
for 93 students.
Yep. Which is right in line with what it was last year. I didn't come to the meeting because we didn't have one, but it was right around 12.9. It was just under 13,000 a kid last year. And that was with 93 kids.
16,000?
13,000,
13,000?
yeah, per child. Yep.
And I remember going to those meetings way back when, all the towns, do the towns meet and vote at the meeting?
I have not gone to another one to find out.
'Cause
I went to the budget meeting, and then we never had a finance committee meeting, so I didn't go back, because I had nothing to go back for.
Because I think if reps from the towns, member towns go there.
Yes.
And they vote no, then the budget doesn't pass. Not saying we would, but, and the increase doesn't seem that
No, I think that we're expected to bring
substantial.
this back to the finance committee. Finance committee is expected to either vote for it or vote against it, and then a representative or whoever, I know Acushnet had 4 people from their finance committee. Whoever wants to go is welcome to go, and I imagine that vote is made, and
The kids do the academics over there too, or so they go there all day?
what I did find that was interesting is that the teachers there are in a union, but it is not the teachers' union. It is the Teamsters Union. So they've been able to save some money because roughly 15% of the teachers are in the union's health plan, the pension, the healthcare plan. And I thought that was odd. I thought when he said they were in the Teamsters, I thought he was saying that just the shop teachers. He said, no, all of them. So,
Teamsters.
Teamsters.
Do we know what
Mess
the,
with them.
do we know what the Carver's, school cost per pupil is? I mean, how much different is it?
I know, but I think you're gonna find out at the March 5th meeting.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I don't think they've got it passed yet. I think it's higher than this, though.
What does this cost? Sorry, what was that again?
13,000.
13,000,
I don't know that it's that far off.
13,398.
I'm gonna say 15. I think it's pretty close.
I think that.
But it's more.
Yeah,
I think it's more, yeah.
I think it's more, too.
probably slightly though, I don't
Okay.
think it's that much more.
We haven't met with the school committee, so
I didn't know if anyone
it's a
knew
secret.
from last year.
So is this March 5th meeting you're going to, is that to vote?
The March 5th meeting I am going to apparently is to vote. It's the only budget meeting they're having. So you're more than welcome. You can even go instead.
I got another meeting that night.
Sure you do. It's at 5 o'clock. Bill, you're welcome to go. You've gone before. Beth, if you want to go, you're more than welcome to, and I'll
You
reach
should
out
go,
to.
it's a great place, when you go there, it's
They
just,
got great cookies, because everything comes right out of, it does, they come right out of culinary.
it's so well
So
maintained, it's
there's-
an older building, but very, very well maintained.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Great
maybe I'll
coffee,
come.
great cookies, homemade cookies and stuff like that. The selectmen are going on a walk, and they're gonna do it at lunchtime, so they can get some free food out of the culinary program.
March 15th?
March 5th, same night as that we have the Board of Selectmen. This is at 5 o'clock at Old Colony, and then we have a 7 o'clock here with the Board of Selectmen.
All right, so what are you looking to do? You need a motion?
I think a motion, yeah.
I guess I'd make a motion to approve the Carver's a portion of the, is it the Rochester Vocational, is that what it is?
Old Colony.
Old Colony, a vocational school, $1,219,241. Pass on to the selectmen for approval.
I second the motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carried. This is not going to be shared with the selectmen because that meeting is that night, and this is going to be at 5 o'clock, but again, I don't see the what are they going to do? You know, not for nothing, but what are they going to do? Okay. Continued discussion on the grant program. In the packet you got, there's two. This is the one that Beth had put together. Thank you very much. This is, in your packet, is the one that we had sent, I had put together quickly and sent over to Michael, and Michael sent it to Meg, just for some wording. And Meg's comment is that no matter what we do, we should really try to leave this application process open to adjustment, simply because there are going to be things that will come up that we had never anticipated, rather than overcomplicate it in the beginning. So I kind of threw this together quick. It's obvious that there's going to need to be some adjustments made to some of the wording, but it's pretty much on what we had talked about. It has to be a 501c3. It has to come back and benefit the town. There is a blank spot in here for how much of that grant has to come back and benefit the town. It can be a fill in the number, or we can vote on it. I personally would like to see 75% as being the number. That allows them to spend 25% of that grant money. If it happens to run out over, so be it, but the bulk of that grant is for the Carver residents and for the Carver taxpayer.
So I'm not familiar, who's usually applying for these grants? Like, what would they be spending it on that's outside of our town?
This year, we have, and it's in the warrant that
Oh, sorry.
Elaine had just given us.
I saw that.
YPAC is the Young People's Alliance of Carver. They were asking for $5,000. They do a lot of the youth programs. They're withdrawing that warrant from the warrant this year on town meeting floor because they're closing up shop.
Okay.
South Shore Community Action Council for service to low-income families and elderly residents in the town of Carver. Now, that's a great idea, except we don't know what are they really doing with that. You're telling us that it's going to benefit low-income families and elderly residents. And I think that's a wonderful program. But once they tell you that they're using that money for that, and we hand them the $5,000, we never ask them to come back and show us, what did you do with it? So we have no way of knowing where did it go. And Social Community Action Council is huge.
Yeah.
So did it just go in their general fund and get written off in checks, and maybe they didn't have the participation in Carver that they anticipated?
But we could ask them to.
So we would have to, the idea is to ask them to come back and account for. Same thing with all of them. Shane gives thanks, they're asking for $6,000. if we put a $5,000 cap on the program this year, I think that it would be only fair that since they've already have it on the warrant for 6,000, that even if town meeting does vote to not do this, to not fund these money articles and allow the grant program to go forward, that be the exception, that they be allowed to still apply for the grant of 6,000, because it's already on the warrant, and fair is fair. And they should still come before us and tell us, what are you doing with it? Veterans Food Pantry is a great idea, holiday and food pantry programs, but how much of this 6,000 is going to benefit Carver?
Just concerned about, how you police this, I mean, how do you know, and is it just more work to try and police it?
I don't think so. I think they're going to have to come before us, as a representative from their organization and just,
It's a paperwork that you have to go over and.
no, I don't think so. I
But
think
you
it's going to
get,
be
like, a letter.
a synopsis,
Yeah.
The selectmen do require an annual report, letting them know how many Carver residents were serviced
Okay.
through this. And I know last year at town meeting, I believe a representative from each of the agencies did come and explain what the money would be used for. But it's a good idea to get that report and to see how many Carver residents are being serviced and.
Do they give you anything more than that? Like, we've serviced, say, 90 people in the town of Carver, and then some type of a synopsis or a bio of what they did? We helped this particular woman with this, or,
Because, one of them from last year was the South Coastal County Legal Services, another one was Health Imperatives for the Violence Intervention, and those types of things, they would not be able to release that information.
yes, yeah, you'd never get names and addresses,
no,
nor
not,
would you
no,
want to.
no, you would never get a name or address, but you get like some, Mrs. S did, blah, blah, this is how we helped her, some type of a synopsis back.
I can try to get that information for you. I'm not sure they'll
No,
give it to
I'm
us.
just throwing out there. I just know other grants, a lot of times that's what you get. You get this like nice letter of these are all the statistics of what we've done, it's how we've spent the money, then you usually get this touchy-feely story at the end of, please give again next year because this is how your money helped.
Well, this is the problem, and I think that what's happening is that we're being asked on an annual basis
Yeah.
as part of their fundraising. And I think what really brought this to light, contrary to popular social media, was not Shane Gives Thanks. It was not anything to do with that. It was that it hit $23,000. And the fear is that what do we do next year when it's $35,000? Or $30,000? Or $40,000? And if it becomes a money article and it winds up on the warrant, then it gets voted as a block. So do we then start breaking these out and voting on them individually, and it's the 11th hour and people want to adjourn and go home? And then where's the oversight after the fact? And this whole thing will run afoul of the anti-aid amendment, which is state law. You cannot give money to these charities unless we get something in return, which is what you see the opinion of town council on the last page. I copied and pasted that, just so that would be on there. This was, Michael Malinowski had asked council for their opinion. This was their reply on November 20th. And I think that this is the best way to handle it. I think it gives the most amount of oversight with the least amount of aggravation. We're not asking them to come here and jump through hoops. We don't want a big dog and pony show. Just come and make out an application that you'd like X dollars for this reason. You come before us as a full group and you plead your case, that we would like to do this and this and this. And then we say thank you, and then we all vote, and either we say yes or we say no, or we adjust the amount of money. And if we do, then there is stipulations as to what you can do with that money, when we'd like to have you come back and tell us what you did with that money. And this way, there'd be a cap on it of 25, I think we all agreed on 25,000 for the whole program, and a maximum of $5,000 per applicant. So does that mean that we can't service 6 applicants at $5,000 apiece? Yes, it does. Does that mean that we then have to go back to the 6 applicants and say, we can't give you all 5,000 apiece, but we can give you all 4,000 apiece. Or we can say, we would like to give a person that has never applied for a grant before, would like to have them have a shot at this, and can you guys live with a little bit less? It just lets us have a little bit of flexibility instead of it being at the last minute at town meeting where the town is voting on a heartstring motion. Because who really wants to vote against a nonprofit? Nobody. And neither do I. I just would like to know where the money's going and what it's doing for the town. John?
I don't have a problem with it. I think that, I was looking at this 80%, not 80%, I was gonna throw a percentage in there.
I left it blank for a reason.
It has to be, so basically what we're saying is that in their best efforts, someone that might have a grant program that, in their best effort, they're trying to help the town of Carver, but occasionally another town will benefit.
Sure.
If you said
I mean,
100%,
what would happen if, we gave, and I think that they got the impression that we had this thing for Shane Gives Thanks. That was because that was, happened to be the $6,000, and it was, he had just gotten that warrant request that day or something like that, and he said, I happen to just get this, and this was the one we used as this is what's going on. So it was not singling them out by any means. I've written them a couple of checks. But if it was them, for instance, and we said 75% of the funds, and when they come back, they say, yes, we used the $5,000, and in our food bank program, which was a great thing, and thank you very much, but we also know that some residents from Middleborough came over and took participation in this. Okay. It's not like it has to be exclusively for Carver. We just would like the bulk of the program to benefit Carver. Whatever number we fill in there, it could be 60%, it could be 70%, 75%. That's certainly up to the will of the board. It cannot, however, change for different organizations. I don't think that would be fair. So I left it blank. I think it's something that we should put in there as a number that we all can live with, and then that's the number. It needs to stay consistent. You know me and fair. I like fair. Types of project. I got this, by the way. This was taken right off a website, probably similar to what you found. So there was a lot of cut and paste, and this was a lot to do with healthcare, so I had to take a lot of wording out of it. But I did leave some stuff in, like stuff that was not eligible, application procedure. I wasn't looking for a big hoop to jump through. It was brought to my attention today that we probably should have in here something from the organization signed saying that, and I didn't quite understand this, and I want to look more into it, but maybe you'd be familiar with it, John, that any of the representatives, council representatives of that organization have never been brought before the Bar Association and have no pending litigation against them. Well, I don't know what the real, I mean, it's not $1 million grant, but that was a suggestion. So can we leave this, and this application is not going before town meeting for approval. The concept is going before town meeting for approval. How we word this, and this is certainly not the final end document, because town council has to vet this. So you know what'll happen when the lawyers get it. This 2 pages will turn into 16 or something. That'll be the way that works, which is fine, but that's what they'll end up doing with it. I thought things that would be, the criteria used in evaluating its significance, action plan, and the likelihood of success. We didn't need a big to-do, just, what are your thoughts on it? And then, does someone, whoever is signing this agreement, do they have the authorization to sign and bind the organization? And if it is a 501c3 organization, we need a tax ID and confirmation that it is such.
Yeah, I would just, on this page about budgets, when we say please provide your annual operating budget total. We don't need details. I kind of would like to see some detail, meaning
Yeah,
like, if there was a salary, I don't need to see line item detail if it's 30 lines and you can put it
yeah,
in
you
three.
just want like a salary and.
Salary,
expense.
operating,
Yeah,
something.
Okay.
which I think
Some
is a
of the-
typical thing people ask for when you
Yeah.
apply for a grant.
Some of the charities, not these, but
Yeah,
they have administrating, and very little gets to the people,
yeah, exactly.
Which one comes in with Red
Did
Cross
we-
or something.
I don't remember reading, we had said at one point, we wanted to make sure we included each applicant, was only allowed to apply once a year, and each applicant had to fully spend the money from the prior year before reapplying.
I do agree with the spend the money from the prior year before you can reapply. I'm not sure that
Do we put that in?
we should lock them out of applying every year unless it's indicated to us that this is an ongoing financing of their operation.
Yeah.
But if they're taking, and I'll use South Shore Community Action Council as an example, if they're using that money every year for fuel assistance help to the residents of Carver, then last year's assistance really has nothing to do with this coming year's assistance. The winter is the winter. If they're, and it's in here that they can't use it for a real estate transaction, add on to a building, maintenance and so forth and so on. So I don't know that trying to limit them to so many over a period of years is gonna be quite as helpful as the idea should have been.
If there's money left from the previous year, is that, and they're looking for if 5,000 is the top, would it just be 4,000, or just,
It's up to this committee. If they didn't spend all the money and they can't show us, if they try to show us that the money is all gone, but if it isn't all gone, we're not asking for a refund, they're not gonna write the town a check, and we're not gonna hold them to Carver residents only, so my expectation is that the balance would be zero.
I guess I should know this, but I don't, but when they qualify for a grant and they get it, do they get, if it's a $5,000 grant, do they get the $5,000 check and they go off with it? Or do
Yes,
they come
so-
and say, hey, I need $2,000, it's a $2,000
No,
check?
they will, after listening to this, I think that's a good idea of what you're requesting is proving that they spent the money, because what happens is they have to invoice us during their fiscal year for which they were approved for the money. But we have found that sometimes May will come around and they haven't invoiced us. So we kind of go, well, did they need the money, or, or they're using this for other
Right.
funding.
So maybe that you should put something in there, if you haven't sent the invoice within 60 days, not 180 days.
Well, the grant will eliminate that, because once you're approved for the grant, then Meg will process it and send out the
So
funds.
she'll process it now.
Or
without
we can do
invoice?
it,
Okay.
in the interview process, we can ask them, how do you want this? Do you want this broken up into 2 checks or 4 checks? Meg had said, because I asked her that same question that John's asking now, and she had said that some of these organizations don't get paid until 6, 8, 9 months later. Which makes me wonder, like you said, is how much do they need the money? Is this part of their next year's budget?
Yeah.
And they're a year ahead of the curve because of where town meeting falls.
It could be, as long as they're servicing Carver residents.
Which I think if it's put out that far, I think it's gonna be much more difficult to come back and show us what you did with the money and who'd you benefit by it.
And also what's been happening is, these agencies, they ask for the same amount every single year. You'll probably find if you go back, they don't increase. There's some, like that legal services asks for 3 every year. Last year, they missed our deadline, they didn't get in, and then they were devastated that they did not make the deadline. So they made sure they got it in on
So
time for
do-
$3,000. So, and they do service Carver residents and
And
they
it's
give
a
us
big
their-
deal, sure.
It is a big deal to them, yes.
So do these people, do they have grant writers that are doing this, or is it just somebody in an office?
No, this is a town warrant article. This is a piece of paper with 10 signatures on it and this exact same line, to see if you guys would give me $5,000 to support YPAC, and this is what we do with it. And it gets sent in and bang, it's on the warrant.
But it's possible these types of agencies do go out for grants.
Yeah,
and could have.
they
grant
might have a
writers.
grant writer,
Right.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Well, I think we're at the point now, if we take this with us and, everybody makes their comments on it for our next meeting, we could probably wrap it up and say it's not a document that gets voted on, but we're happy with it.
I'd like to
This
see,
is like
I'd like to
nine-
get
this
this
is like
wrapped up at
95%.
the joint meeting so that we can get it done with and get it on the warrant, because the language is gonna have to get on the warrant for town meeting. Because I understand that the current request is gonna be that these money articles, that we recommend that the town vote no on these money articles, and that you put forth and give this committee the ability to do this grant program and fund these exact same amounts first year. We're not gonna make any of these organizations jump through the hoops, but it lets us get started with them. And I'd also recommend that, because Shane Gives Thanks is on here for 6,000, that be maintained, even though we have a $5,000 cap in the grant program, that become the exception, just because it's already there.
So, we would be recommending that this not be granted them?
The
because
town
the
vote
process-
no to the money article and yes to the grant program, and then we will go and do the money articles as a grant program for our first year.
The project goal, is that like a mission statement for each one of the groups that they are gonna submit to?
Yes.
Yeah.
If we grant this amount of money, what are the goals of this? It's really just to see it really benefit the town of Carver. And perhaps Michael could have, council weigh in on these two things by the selectmen's meeting, so we can try to bang these out.
Groups going to other towns as well, or is this just?
No idea.
No idea.
No idea. I know there are some towns that don't even entertain this at all. That there is no taxpayer money for a nonprofit.
Their reason being
It's against the law.
why we do it?
Because we can do it, provided they can show us that it does benefit our residents in the town. That there is a service coming back to the town.
And one of the big changes is that this provides accountability. I mean, someone at town meeting might turn around and say that we're taking the ability away from town meeting, but really not, because even when we have these groups come before us, anybody can show up at the meeting and voice their opinion about whether they think it's a good
Yeah.
idea or a bad idea or whatnot, so we still
I
get
think
town-
there's actually more accountability.
And I like the idea of when they do come, you have the scoring sheet. So
Yeah.
that
And I'm okay with that.
if you have
The
a
what?
scoring, like a scoring sheet, so usually there's maybe 5 different items, and we all score it, and then you add the totals to make sure that, we're not swaying the vote one way or another. So it might be, how many points you're gonna give them on, all different items, you can come up with all different things, but, how much is it gonna benefit our town, could be one of them, and then you score them.
I think a lot of it's gonna be, would base on what they've done in the past. Obviously, I'll go back to South Shore Community Action Council. I mean, when I was in the oil business 25 years ago, we did business with SSCA and Quincy Community Action and Self-Help, and, they're a great, and there's a lot of people that rely very heavily on that between heating their house and putting food on their table. So it's a big deal. So by all means, tell me the number of households that you guys help out in the town of Carver, and I don't see a problem with this entire board saying, sure, we'd be more than happy to give you that grant money. And we could do that and know confidently that that particular organization, that money's going to this town. It's helping these residents.
So there's a verification process that we would
Yeah,
have?
8, 9 months down the road, we'd like to have you come back in, tell us how the grant program is working for you, how much of it have you spent, who have you given it to, and how has it benefited the residents of Carver? And we could actually incorporate it at that time with, do you plan on asking for a grant this coming year? So we could try to incorporate something like that, start working on the grant process right after town meeting for the following year, so that, it's typically pretty quiet for the finance committee once town meeting is over. We could devote a couple of meetings to that, and then 1 or 2 meetings to the vote, because I'd like to still hold to 1 meeting a month, even in the off-season, and then have that all done with and over with before we get crunching into budget.
So, I mean, the Shane is in Carver, so we know the people involved. I mean, it all comes down, obviously, to trust, you know, and we've heard stories of people
Sure.
ripping off charitable things, you know, and that's my concern. You know. Is how do you police it, how do you verify it?
You
how do
don't.
know?
But there's no policing at all with the current town warrant process. None.
Well, I know, I mean, that's, you
This
know,
at least
my-
puts a little bit more oversight to
My,
it.
my thought was you have the groups come in, pitch their mission statement to the town and have it be you know, there's a bench outside and people can donate, you know, have envelopes given out to it. So it's a donate, each person can donate to, you know,
And
whatever
do away
charity
with this
they-
altogether, is that what you're trying to say?
That's where my mind goes.
That's not gonna happen.
I'm just, there's a lot of things that I want to do.
Oh, I understand,
Yeah.
and I don't
I
know
just-
that I don't know that I disagree, but the fact of the matter is, we've always done this.
I know.
So if we try to go on that, you know,
Yeah.
there's a hat in the hallway, and on your way out the door, stick a few dollars in it, that's not gonna work at the exit to town meeting. They're not gonna fill that hat up with pocket change. They're gonna ask for a check, because this is an abstract. This is a number on a piece of paper that nobody in that audience at town meeting is writing the check. Nobody's putting that number on a piece of paper and signing their name to it. It's an abstract. It's like going to the casino and having casino chips. It's not real money because it's in this overall big picture. And it's only $23,000 out of a $40 million budget, and who really cares?
I mean, out of these 5 people who are asking money, I'm pretty sure that 3 of them have some type of a grant writer in their office and could provide us back with some statistics that we're asking. I think Shane gives thanks, probably can't because you're not gonna ask at the door, what town do you live in when you go in. But the Community Action Council, the legal services, and the women's resources, they have databases, they know
Sure.
where these people live and what they've done, and they could even report back to us quarterly in a letter if we wanted. And I think a lot of grant programs that I've seen in my career, that's what they do. You know, quarterly, you send a letter back, I've serviced 30 patients in your town, and this is how I benefited your town. Usually you get this little nice story with it. And they say, you know, please support me again next year.
But we can't get names of people that are getting the
No.
benefit.
No, you
so
don't
that we
want
could-
the
You want
names. You just
names, you
get-
want names.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, have you?
You're never gonna
have you-
get it that way, though. You're gonna have
No,
to
you're
have
just gonna get,
some faith
like-
and trust, and I don't believe that any of these groups are gonna come before this committee, or this town, or this board of selectmen and lie.
All right, well, that's,
I just don't.
Yeah.
It'll be a learning experience, it's trying to get familiar with what their needs are, and
Sure.
we'll ask financial questions to make sure that it's being, but we're not gonna turn around and follow them home to make sure that they
No.
did exactly what they think.
But I would
I got an unmarked
Bet.
car, I can.
these guys definitely know, okay, we saw so many patients or so many people in Carver, so many people in Lakeville, and I'm sure they know.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure
Can't tell
Shane
ya.
gives thanks, doesn't, but the other ones do.
I can't tell you how many households we delivered to back in the day, and it was under Quincy Community Action, because we did a tremendous amount. I was in Weymouth at the time. And people would come out with tears in their eyes, honest to God. And this is when heating oil was 65 cents a gallon. So imagine at $3 or whatever it is now. They come out with tears in their eyes, and they were thrilled that we just filled the oil tank, and there was no bill because it was getting billed to Quincy Community Action, and they could feed their kids this week. You know, I mean, that was the way it went, and I don't think you realize when you have nothing how much a little bit is. You know, we're very fortunate.
I don't disagree with the
Knock
concept
on wood.
of giving and helping.
But I'm all for helping these organizations. I just would like to see a little bit more accountability brought back so that everybody in town can be comfortable knowing that we're not squandering $23,000.
Well, that's my concern.
Okay, so
You know?
we're all good, we're on the same page with this, right?
Yeah. We just
So we'll
wanted
bring
to
this
sort
to
of
the
come up with
selectmen on the 5th.
do you want a percentage? I mean, I would think you need at least 50%.
I'd like to see 60 to 65, 70, I don't know, what
I
do you
like
think?
75,
I
Yeah,
do too, to
75
be
's
honest
good,
with you.
yeah.
It's a nice round number.
75%.
Okay.
Right.
And then and then they'll modify this too?
Yeah.
They'll clean it? Okay.
So let's take a motion to bring this to the selectmen on the 5th, and we can either continue it to the 5th meeting or not approve it, but, yeah, let's just continue it to the 5th.
I'd like to make the motion.
I'm not ready for that. You do the motion. Too new.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to continue further discussion on the grant writing process.
To the 5th?
Yeah, to March 5th at the Board of Selectmen's meeting.
And I'll second it.
There you go. Motion made and seconded to continue this to the 5th for the Board of Selectmen's meeting to wrap it up. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried?
These interviews with these people, probably out of line here, but will be done before any future, before town meeting things, you know.
We'll get you the thumb screws and you can.
And do you think you have to bring them in person? Do you think they could send in a letter?
They could send in a letter, I don't see why not, but I think it would be nice to have maybe a representative.
Oh,
They're all pretty well local operations anyhow.
I'd like a representative, I'd like to talk to him, just meet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I think that'd be great. And last but not least, yeah, the stretch code. I have some mixed feelings about this, and the only one I'm gonna hit with at this point is, I can't find anybody that loves this program. Conversely, I can't find anybody that hates this program, and I've tried. I talked with Acushnet, who's gotten over $600,000 in grant. I've asked all 3 or 4 of those finance committee members what was their motivation, and they all rattled back the $600,000 number. Rochester, the same thing was the grant money. I don't have an answer out of Middleborough because the people that were real hot for that in Middleborough don't work there anymore.
I thought Plymouth was the one town that didn't.
Plymouth has not taken up for it yet, but there's been quite a few more communities that have joined it. The problem that I have with the stretch code is no grant ever comes without a whole lot of strings. And just by going with just what we're trying to do with the nonprofits, while there's not a real long set of strings attached to that, there's some accountability attached to it. So now Carver decides to adopt a stretch code, and we apply for grant money, and that's the carrot. The grant money's the carrot. And now what happens 2, 3, 4 years from now when, and this is a quote from the 2017 Stretch Energy Code, the base energy code in Massachusetts is updated approximately every 3 years. The Stretch Energy Code must be updated periodically in order to maintain the stretch. When the Stretch Code Energy was first adopted, it was characterized as adopting the next version of the base energy code early, which is how it turned out. So now, if we've come this close to the 2 codes, and the energy code gets the base energy code gets a little bit tighter, the stretch energy code's going to get a little bit tighter. And we're going to keep climbing this ladder. I don't know if they'll ever get to be the same place. From a finance committee standpoint, our primary concern with this should be the grant money and what could be done with it. Based on the handout that we had gotten from Seth, it was $115,000 projected. I'm not convinced. Oh, 155? I'm sorry, 155,000
You said
projected.
it could be conservative, maybe 160.
Now, will town meeting vote that? They voted this thing down twice already. Is it because the finance committee didn't get behind it? I don't know. I do know that Acushnet has a couple of electric vehicles. I believe Rochester has an electric vehicle that, I could be talking out of turn, that is completely unreliable, but Acushnet's vehicles are pretty good. And I could swear he said Halifax or Hanson had some BMW electric vehicles. I don't know.
What did they say what they felt like the benefit to the town was, other than they're gonna get the grant money, but then they have to go back every year and prove how they've kept up, is it 20%?
Yeah,
Were they able to do that?
I
Here we go,
talked
20% in 5
to
years.
Bob Francis, the building inspector, in fact, yesterday. And what he said to me was, right now, the current energy stretch code, the base code, has gotten so much tighter in these new house construction. I didn't know this. The new houses, you build a brand-new house now, the roof has to be engineer load rated for not only the snow load, but solar. That's in the current base stretch code. That's not the energy stretch code. So, obviously, this state, this country is heading in a green direction. Maybe won't be enough of a green direction to really be super green, but we're heading toward an energy-based. My only issue is that what happens 2, 3, 4 years from now when the state in their infinite wisdom, which would be an oxymoron, but in their infinite wisdom would decide that we need to now have a fleet of electric school buses because this is a new technology and they only cost $200,000 apiece. But we're going to save a lot of gasoline and diesel fuel. And we don't have a choice, and there is no grant money to buy those.
Right, and that's exactly what's happening is the state is encouraging green communities, they have for years. And what's coming down the line is that all towns will have to become green communities.
So
The
that's-
grants will get less and less.
Okay.
The incentives, things like that.
So
they're
if
still
that's
there.
coming down the line, this says we have, right, 5 years to reduce our energy by 20%. So maybe we would make it,
Well, we've already met some of those guidelines. There are a couple
Okay.
that we still would have to meet.
okay.
We've already met, I think it's 1 and 2. I think the biggest one is the last one. That was the other thing that I had a comment about, was that if this is going to hit us anyway,
Minimize.
ultimately, then why don't we get in it now and get the grant money? If ultimately we're going to have electric charging stations outside, and, why not get the grant money to
And they did say that we would
update?
get the $155,000 for the first year, and then after that, we could apply for competitive grants for $250,000 each. Right?
It's a hard one to call. I mean, it'd be a shame that 5 years from now, for this group or the then finance committee to get together and realize that, or be told that from the planning board, hey, we're now a stretched community and we had no choice because we were one of the last holdouts. And by the way, our grant is a goose egg, and now we need to find a way to build into the budget $250,000 to put in, 4 charging stations and buy 2 pickup trucks that have to be electric powered. And there's no grant money because, we're at the tail end of the program, so the state didn't need the carrot anymore. Enough of the communities and surrounding communities took advantage of it, so now they were able to sit back and say, well, this is what you're doing,
So
whether
we,
you like it or you don't.
so we feel like it's number 5 that's what's holding us back, minimize life cycle cost of new construction, adopt the stretch code. That's the only one that's holding
I
us
think
back?
that's the one that, I think they had talked about, being the one of the last things that we would have to overcome. I think we'd already done 1 and 2. I think they decided, correct me if I'm wrong here, 3 and 4 might have been pretty easy, and the last one, I think, was the big hurdle.
I do have the explanations for each one.
We already have an expedited permitting process. The energy reduction plan to reduce energy use by 20%. Then there was stuff that we've already done, which gets us almost there anyhow.
Yeah.
Base code is almost, like you were saying, equal to the stretch code.
Yeah.
So it's like, why?
That's the big difference from when this was turned down the last time, is the two codes, the 2 code differences at the last time this was turned down by town meeting were huge. There was a big disparity between the 2 codes. Now, they've been brought very close in line, with the latest version being your roof will be solar ready. You don't have to have solar panels on it, but it will be solar ready. And and Bob showed me that the other day, that's in the current code.
So it does say it's only gonna apply to new construction for residential or commercial.
Yep.
I mean, do we have an idea of how many we build a year?
We built, I think the 13 houses last year,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken, 13 to 15.
I'm not sure on those numbers, but I think the argument at the 2017 town meeting was, it was cost prohibitive for people
Okay,
building,
it
maybe
is.
that they couldn't afford it.
It's,
People also thought if you went and did rehab your house too, you had a,
Right, that's right, if
Okay.
you wanted
Right.
to build an
I think there was,
addition.
I think there was a
you'd
lot of
have to-
misinformation.
right, there is
So-
no rehab, you don't have to, it doesn't apply to
It says
rehab,
rehab,
does not apply to additions.
Yep,
It applies to new construction only.
Yeah, it says additions, renovations, repairs are exempt from the stretch code.
I think doing an addition, you gotta bring it up to code anyhow.
You don't know, yes, but it's not, you don't
Not
have
the
to bring it
stretch
to
code,
the
but-
stretch.
But according to the base code.
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean, the job I'm.
Well, you're gonna build it, you're gonna add an addition onto your house, you gotta build it to the current construction
Yeah,
code anyway.
Right, right.
But you don't have to you won't need a HERS rating on the entire building when you're done, and that addition does not have to have its own testing. The big difference now in the cost between the two, stretch code and non-stretch code for a residential building, is really the engineering cost of the HERS test. And that can run up to, for a 3,000 square foot house, that can run to about 2,500.
And the
But
other
if you're
question-
building a 3,000 square foot house in the town of Carver and a brand spanking new house in this town, 3,000 square feet, you're spending 450 plus, $3,000's really gonna,
yeah.
shoot you in the head. You want a tight house anyway, so it's really just a certification.
Didn't Seth say he could get us those numbers if we wanted him
Yeah.
to?
Yeah, right now, we're dealing with,
Up to you guys.
there's no new information. Everything we're talking about, we've talked over
Yes.
the past two meetings.
So, and I can't get anything more updated. I haven't found any builders that are one way or the other. I think the biggest problem with the stretch code, really and truly, as far as the town of Carver is concerned, is Big Brother's telling me what to do. And I think that's where the fight is. I don't think it has anything to do with the number, the $3,000 cost. I don't think it has anything to do with any of that. I think it's Big Brother's telling me what to do again. And ultimately, you're right, he is. He's gonna do it either in the stretch code, or he's gonna do it in the base energy code and keep making that more stringent.
Yeah, in the end is the end game, and they're not doing additions and remodeling, but that's probably right around the corner. you
Yeah,
know?
it
And then
could
you
very well
tie-
be.
You tie yourself to the government telling you what to do, you know?
But you also can, at town meeting, take yourself out of the stretch code. Now, I don't know what the ramifications of doing that are, but I do know that you got in it,
Take
you
all your
can,
electric cars.
you can take the town out of it. Now, does that mean we gotta give them back the grant money? Who the hell knows? I don't have any idea.
Well, all the stuff that, of the five, we've already done, you know, so it's like, why commit to something when we can do the other things? If we wanted to have, you know, electric cars, then already electric car.
I'd like to see us decide,
How many town vehicles would be eligible for that? I know fire engines aren't, the buses aren't,
for now,
Discussion
I
of
know.
public safety.
for now.
I know.
New York City's running electric trash trucks. They're running, UPS just bought it's got a whole fleet of CNG delivery trucks, electric delivery trucks,
I guess when I think
propane
of
powered
this-
over-the-road trucks.
I think I heard this years ago, the 9 words you're supposed to be really leery about. I'm from the government, I'm here to help.
Yeah, I know. So I think the bottom line is that the town meeting's gonna vote this one way or the other anyway. So I think that the only question before this board is, do we get behind this program for the grant money and let town meeting, let the chips fall where they may? Or do we say, we don't wanna be involved in recommending the stretch code, in which case they're probably gonna still bring it before town meeting, and now we had nothing to do with it. So I think that's our choice. I think ultimately, this is gonna come again before town meeting.
I'll keep trying. What are the ramifications of getting out of it if for some reason you find?
I just know that the city and towns can vote to get out of it. Does that mean they can really vote to get out of it? I have no idea, Bill. I just know that that's also one of the things in that packet, that you got in, you can get out.
I know
But there was no detail.
I was told Mattapoisett didn't sign on to it, and I sent something to the town administrator, but never heard anything back, so I could try again. But
Call them at a place and
Curious,
ask
because
them.
I was really sort of surprised.
Plymouth didn't sign on to it either.
Huh?
Is it because Plymouth hasn't taken up the issue, or is it because Plymouth doesn't know about it, or is it because Plymouth doesn't want it? Middleborough is pretty conservative like we are. They're pretty Republican in Middleborough. They just joined it.
Well, Rochester too, I was talking.
Rochester's the same way. They're pretty,
Yep.
this whole county is pretty conservative and not real big on Big Brother, and yet these cities and towns have all
Well, I
adopted it.
think it's like a lot of things with the government, I guess, the lure of money, you know, that has turned people to do it, and
It's only
It's not a
155,000. We
lot
don't
of
need to
money.
sell our soul for it, but
that's what I don't like,
But-
giving up the control, you know, you can just,
You know,
we
do
can
we
decide
want-
for ourselves what to do and what to not.
It's whether the town wants to get ahead of the curve. I mean, if we're
That's
already
it.
being
That's
pushed
right.
green anyways, we could grab this money
ultimately,
or
it's
not
gonna
grab
be
it.
part of the current code. So whether you want the government telling you what to do or not, they end up telling you what to do anyway. We're gonna build a brand-new police station. That brand-new police station is gonna be at the current codes,
Oh, I understand that, I understand.
and that's all gonna be government mandated.
But
So
it's always been that
That
way.
would get us
you
to
know,
the
they just-
20%, probably, because they did just say putting the LED
Exact- Well,
lights,
that's what it was, the 20% because of the school,
the school.
and the updated heating system, I think, that we plan on for the library, and the new heating system in the high school was energy efficient. I think that we've done some stuff that gets us really close to that 20% number anyway.
If we convert our streetlights to LED, I
I
think.
think you can convert all of them for the grant money, but we can do a big portion, get this stuff.
I think
Totally
that's just what I
out of
wrote
whack.
down last time.
Why didn't they put solar in the schools? I'm just curious as to,
I asked,
I don't think any of the roofs,
you know, we're getting away from this, but I asked Dick Ward that question, he said it never came up. And then I was told by somebody else that there's no advantage for a municipality to put in their own solar panels, because there's nothing you can do with the power. You can't sell it back.
you'd use it for the school, you know, run the school.
I'm not sure how you use it for the school, but you cannot sell it into the grid as a municipality. The town of Carver cannot put up a solar panel and sell that power to the grid. Now, that could be 100% wrong, but that's what I was told. So my question was, this brand-new school, where the hell are the solar panels on the roof?
Well, the roofs aren't necessarily set up.
Okay, can we get
for-
back down to the stretch code?
Yeah,
So,
We did apply for a grant for the LED street lighting.
We
So
did.
we're just waiting to hear back. We just applied
Okay.
for that.
oh, cool.
So we're waiting to hear back on that.
and it does say that, heavy-duty vehicles over 8,500 pounds are exempt.
This week.
That's what's on there.
Well, we don't know. You know, will they always be exempt? We don't know. So,
Yeah.
what's the flavor of the board? John?
Anybody else like to make a motion?
I know you hate the idea,
No, I don't,
and I don't have a problem with that.
I just think that I would like to hear, my personal feeling is, it makes sense, it's coming. Everybody says that sooner or later, in 2 years, we'll all be, you know, following the stretch code, but nobody really knows when that's gonna happen. It might never be mandated, so that doesn't really sway me. Sitting here saying that, you know, it makes sense to be energy efficient. It's not a lot of money, from a standpoint, if you have the money to build a new house, pay the additional cost for the HERS rating. The town gets grant money, that's great, but I just hope that it gets used wisely. But my problem is, I wanna talk to someone, and I appreciate you trying to find somebody. I'd like to hear the other side, the person that's adamantly against it, you know, I'd just like to hear from a builder that has faced it, you know, whatever the economic issues are that they face, or what they think's gonna happen by having this in here. Do you know of anyone that would be able to, any
yeah,
Plymouth?
I've,
Apparently Plymouth hasn't voted in or won't vote it in, or
I don't
hasn't
know,
yet.
I don't know what Plymouth's issue is with it.
It'd be good to maybe a Plymouth builder that you might know that might turn around and give us some feedback.
I can check around again. I know some people, not necessarily builders, but, or, you know, because this whole thing is, well, getting into conspiracy theories,
I know.
tied to the UN, you know, and it's just putting,
Well, John, I think what you're saying is what happened at town meeting, is that builders got up and.
That's, I'd like
Yeah.
to know that before we
Spoke
go,
against it.
because if they, quite frankly, if you look at it objectively, you could turn around and say, if there was someone, we could probably get a list that says, here are the two codes, and you're looking down the list and you're seeing there's only X amount of differences. It'd be great to see, what the building code was when we voted it down, and how that's changed, and how close it is to stretch code. People can't argue with the fact that they're seeing information that's public information, that they aren't that different. There will be a savings, you'll make this money up in savings on the home that you build from energy efficiency. The town gets grant money, are their strings attached properly? Will the stretch code morph down the road? Maybe it'll have rehab issues as well, when people want to do renovations, it could.
Yeah. I asked Bob Francis, and he says that the current building codes, actually, there's adjustments to the current building code constantly. There's changes to the code all the time.
Oh, I know.
And
Just
you.
the R value of insulation.
And you would
I mean,
know. That's right.
You know, when I first started, you just put the basic insulation there, you could feel the difference, so, and my question is, how tight is too tight, which I talked to, mentioned to him.
Well, he gave me a,
What is too tight? I mean, now that, now you've gotta go into the air exchanger, because the houses are too tight, and how healthy is that, so
he gave me a piece of paper you now have to have the homeowner or the builder fill out, and it has to be posted on site, usually at the electrical panel. And it gets into R values and roof insulation and wall insulation. I'm looking at this, and he gives it out to everybody. This is what's part of your building permit. This must be filled out. And it goes into detail about the construction of the house. What's in the framing, what's in the flooring, what's the R value of the roof, what's the R value of the sidewalls, these thermal pane windows, and on and on and on we go. And this is just the standard basic energy code now. It's not the stretch at all. So when you talk about, the government and Uncle Sam, yeah, but the basic code is also the government and Uncle Sam, and it's coming in with restrictions and requirements and so forth. Do I know that we're gonna be a stretch community, whether we vote on this or not, in 5 years? No, I don't. You're absolutely right.
I don't think.
But I can't for 1 minute believe that if 75% of the state of Massachusetts, cities and towns adopt the stretch code, that the other 25% are not gonna be mandated to do so within a period of time.
And then we've lost out on.
And then we've lost out, because at that point, it comes down with a mandate, and here's the new codes, and no, there's no grant money. Because we don't need to give you the carrot anymore, we have enough participants that we can now force you guys to join it. Or quite the contrary, we start taking away some aid that we would give you if you don't join it. You know how that works in reverse. So, do I know? I don't. I wish I had a crystal
Wareham
ball.
is in the program too. I don't know if anyone else came from Wareham.
I think they just joined it.
Yeah, they're one of the 30 new green communities.
Yeah.
Hanson, Wareham, Hingham, Marion's,
Yeah.
quite a few.
Hanson said the same thing. I happen to know one of the selectmen there, and they talked similarly. They said, there was grant money involved, and it was good for the town. It was good for the town. I mean, obviously, the towns that have joined it had to do so at a town meeting. So the majority of their town meeting had to get up and vote in favor. Do I know if it was unanimous? I don't. Do I know if it passed by one vote? I don't.
All right,
But
so-
it passed.
So it stands right now, no one's willing to make a motion.
The idea of making your house
I mean,
I'm okay.
more economical for you, to heat and everything else, is just common sense, you're not gonna put in single pane windows and.
But why don't
You can't,
why don't we advance this and let this get put on the warrant? And let it go before town meeting again this year. And if they vote it down, we're not on the hook. We tried. We can look at it from a grant standpoint, which is the angle that we should be looking at it from anyway, and let town meeting decide whether they want it. They might throw their hands up in the air and say, this is the third time you're bringing this to us. No, we don't want it, and bang, you get shot in the head with it. Okay. But you can't stop us for trying, because we're trying to come up with another $155,000 in grant money that's a potential to get for the town, that's gotta, you just asked where the additional funding is gonna come for some of these other projects.
But you can't use that money for anything else other than.
No, but what I'm trying to say is that if we're gonna redo the lighting in here, and it's gonna cost the town of Carver $10,000, why not let the grant money do the lighting in here for free?
It'll be 100,000, but,
Well, or whatever it would be, I'm trying to keep that,
Oh, boy.
If you're gonna throw out numbers.
Yeah. So this right here would be 100,000 to redo these lights?
Street lighting.
Street
Street
lighting
lighting.
is 100,
It
okay,
would- Well, approximately.
okay.
This room is $12.98 on sale at Lowe's, but
They didn't put
They-
LEDs on the streetlights out there when they put them in the most,
These right here,
yeah,
yes.
they did.
That's the Mass DOT. I'm talking about street lighting all over town.
All right, I'm gonna, as I said before, I'm for it in concept. I'll make a motion to move this forward. The only caveat is I'm gonna do a little more research on, to try to get the negative side of this, on my own.
okay.
But I will make a motion to, I guess, approve the 2017, the current stretch code and pass on the Board of Selectmen for a vote.
I second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion made and seconded to recommend Carver adopt the current stretch code to the Board of Selectmen.
Current, when you say current stretch code, you're talking about the base code?
This is 2019, so it's the current stretch code.
So is it this one?
Stretch code. We're recommending the current stretch
This
code.
says 17, so
Yeah,
I'm
this
assuming
says
there's been no
That's
change.
the latest one I got.
Yeah,
So it's the current stretch code to the Board of Selectmen for their consideration, I prefer to use that word, I think, on advancing this to town meeting warrant. Is that okay with you?
That sounds fair.
You have that second?
I second that.
You got all that? Sorry to make this so difficult. Motion is made and seconded. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor, please
Aye.
indicate by
Aye.
saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Gotta pick one.
Abstain?
Are you abstaining? It's up to you.
Yeah, I think, if we're getting tied into the government more, I just.
I understand.
You can say no.
You can say no, you don't have,
We've
you
already
vote
got-
against
yeah,
it.
No, no.
Okay.
We've got the base code to go by, and that's gonna make the house tight enough.
So you're telling me that you voted?
No.
No?
No.
3, 1, 0. Still carries. I don't blame you. I still like you, don't worry. Believe me, it scares me too, but. Minutes,
Money.
February 7th.
Motion to approve as written?
Did you read them?
Yes, I had plenty of time.
Wow, you're tough, you're tough, you're tough. Motion made and, I need a second.
I second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes from February 7th, 2019. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me?
Aye,
Aye.
I made it.
Motion made and carries. Unanimous. Next meeting is on the 5th with the Board of Selectmen. Motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Wow, you're quick on that one. Motion made and seconded to adjourn. Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried? We're out.